Taylor. You're Brent.
My God, Taylor!
How in the hell did you get
I
here?
got here the same way you did. Spaceship, Ape City, subway.
By yourself?
No, Nova found me.
No, she with you? Where?
I don't know where she is. They separated us. They were trying to make me kill her.
Hey there, Adrenalheads. I am Jerry.
And I'm Mark.
And today we are once again going ape with the second in the series of the original Planet of the Apes movie franchise from 1970, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Welcome back. Let's go bananas.
All right. So there's always a synopsis for the particular movie that we're covering. So Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which came out in 1970. So the synopsis is... Here, an astronaut sent to find the astronauts of the original film discovers not only a world of intelligent talking apes, but an underground cult of grotesque, quote-unquote, humans who are survivors of a nuclear blast from years ago. So, yeah, that does make sense.
Yep. And so let's move on to people you may know in the film. So, Mark, go ahead and start us off.
Okay, first off would be James Franciscus, who is also known as Brent in the particular film, has 77 film credits per IMDb, and oh my goodness, that is a lot. Did a lot of TV series prior and after Apes, Naked City, The Investigators, Mr. Novak, and Longstreet. Notable movies are The Valley of Bwanji, Concord Affair, and Killer Fish.
Yep, and Valley of Gwanji is one of our future movies.
Yes, it is.
Because it's Harryhausen.
Yep.
Next is Kim Hunter as Zira. She has 117 film credits. And again, she has a lot of TV. And she was in 3 of the 5 Apes film franchise. Original, today's movie, and the next movie in the series. She was also in A Streetcar Named Desire as Stella. Gee, I wonder if we ever hear that name in that movie.
Stella!
And one of my favorites of the 90s, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yeah. That was actually a really good movie, too.
Mm-hmm.
Next up would be Maurice Evans, and it would be Dr. Zaius, has 69 film credits per IMDb, reprises his role in this particular movie, was in Rosemary's Baby as Hutch, Bewitched as Maurice, and Batman the TV series, as well as the movie The Jerk.
Mm-hmm. And it's been forever since I've seen that one.
Yeah, same here.
But I'm not a big Steve Martin fan, so it's like, it's not.
I'm sure Ben will actually have that on Wilhelm, based upon Steve Martin films. So.
Yes. Okay. Next we have Linda Harrison as Nova. She has very few film credits. She only has 18. She was in Airport 75, Cocoon, and had a cameo in the 2001 Planet of the Apes movie, and was in a TV show called Bracken's World. And that was like, I think the world of modeling.
Yeah. And Linda Harrison is very much, I'm not sure if she's still doing it. Did she pass away, or is she still
I believe Linda Harrison is the last surviving member of the cast.
Okay, yeah, because the last time I saw her was about 4 years ago, basically because of the pandemic. I'm not clued into who's still alive, who's still doing that, but apparently Linda Harrison is still going out there doing convention circuits. So if you're able to go see her at a convention, do so, because that is like, as Jerry stated, the last surviving member of the Planet of the Apes series. So if you could get her autograph and a picture of her as Nova, that would be perfect. Or even get a picture with her. That would be amazing. And send that to us, too, because that'll be fun to see. I would love to see that. Next up, James Gregory, General Ursus. He had 184 film credits per IMDb. Starred in Barney Miller as one of the detectives as Luger, Gunsmoke, Big Valley, Rawhide, Police Story, The Lawless Years, 1920s police officer, that you actually put in, which was really cool. One episode of Star Trek, and a couple of episodes of The Twilight Zone. So you said he was in one episode of Star Trek. I'm curious, which one?
He was in one. It was one where he ran a mental institution where he was actually making the people insane.
Ah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it was one. Yeah, and they kind of like had people captured, and one of the other doctors kind of stowed away on board a crate that was on the ship that you see in the very beginning. And one of the doctors pops out, and that's another. And that guy who popped out of the crate was in a couple episodes of Star Trek.
Cool.
Okay, next in supporting, we have Paul Richards as Mendez, who has another 134 film credits, tons of TV credits. No leads, however, at least not that I saw. More of a character actor, and has the guy who is in that thing persona, which is I've seen him in a ton of stuff. Military westerns, courtroom stuff. Yeah.
Well, next up would be Victor Buono, Fat Man. Has 114 film credits per IMDb. I think character named after the bomb dropped on Nagasaki, famous for Batman as King Tut. Oh my goodness. The 1966 Batman King Tut. I never got that.
And he was in I want to say 10, somewhere around, somewhere between 8 and 10, somewhere around there.
Yeah, he had done several in the 66 Batman. Wow, cool.
Next up in support, we have Natalie Trendy as she's listed as albino, has about 40 credits, and she was in excuse me, let me try that again. Next, we have Natalie Trendy, who plays albino, has 39 credits, and was in 4 of the 5 Apes movies, and she has one of the distinctions of being one of the actors that plays both ape and humans in different movies. And next time, and the next movie we do, we'll point that out.
Cool. Lastly would be Charlton Heston as Taylor. Has 134 film credits per IMDb. Saw him in past movie coverages, obviously. We've already talked about Charlton Heston in so many ways. Notable films, 10 Commandments, El Cid, Airport 75, Midway, Soylent Green, etc., etc. There's so many.
Yep. Yeah, Soylent Green had questionable dietary choices. Sorry, Mark.
Well, come on. I expect the puns.
Yes. Okay, and then let's move on to general thoughts. Mark?
General thoughts of the movie? Honestly, I love this film because it was the second film within the Ape series. I just really enjoyed it for what it is. Mind you, I thought it was going to continue more on with Charlton Heston, but we never got that.
Yeah.
Literally, we have somebody who's pretty much a replacement for Charlton Heston for most of the film.
We do.
And then they kind of meet and they have this battle off because of the, as I like to call, the crazy white people with nuclear weapons.
Yes.
And that's literally what it is, because you don't see anybody of color in there. You don't see an Asian. You don't see anybody who is African American or anything of that nature. You see white people stripped of their skin.
Yes.
And they have to do battle. But to me, that was the most distinguished within this particular movie that really got to me, because as a kid watching it, because this movie came out in the 70s, I was a young child at that point, but I saw it in reruns on TV. And to me, seeing that, and it's like you see the veins and everything and how it's all stripped, but they still had skin.
Yeah.
They still had skin. That was the only thing. They maybe slight burns.
Yeah.
But it still scared me as a child watching this on reruns on TV, on UPN 9, Channel 11 in New York City, and things of that nature. But it was kind of a strange moment within the Ape series, because it was their way of trying to end the Ape series. But later on, we kind of figure out, no, it's not the end. It's only the beginning. And then that's where we're going to move on more with the Ape series as we go.
Yeah, and for me, this is another movie in a great series. And even though it's not the best of the series, and despite it does have some shortcomings, the movie is very original and has some very surreal imagery, like mutants with peeled skin praying to a bomb. Mm-hmm. And this is one of these the series that's very iconic in science fiction. And the other recent movies that have been done, in the last, 8 or 9 years kind of shows that. Because if it wasn't, if it didn't stick around or it didn't have cultural significance, that they wouldn't have made 3 more movies out of it.
Or, well, they made a ton of movies and a TV show and cartoons.
Yes, exactly.
And they kind of branched off and made kind of their own, which kind of influenced Star Wars at a certain point, too, if you think about it. And Star Trek, because Star Trek actually had a cartoon series, too, within the 70s as well.
Yeah, it was around, it was like 1972 to 73 that they had that series on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on to our favorite scenes in the movie. So, Mark, go ahead and start us off.
Well, first favorite scene for me would be seeing Brent and his captain, and his captain is blind, and the captain is telling him basically he has to move on and keep going, but eventually, obviously, the captain dies. And we know that Brent is the new quote-unquote hero within this particular movie. So, at least we get a new hero at this point, but we do see the old hero from the last film, which is great. Too, because we all want Charlton Heston at certain points.
Yes. Yeah, for me, the first scene I have is the opening where we see the kind of the rehash of the final part of the last movie. And we see Taylor and Nova entering the Forbidden Zone, falling prey to these hallucinations by as yet unseen mutants, and Taylor disappearing when he's trying to he tries to butt the rifle up against a cliff and just falls right through it.
Yeah, it's kind of segueing into this particular movie, which makes sense. I think they were probably reshot at that point to get that point, so that way we could move into the next story, which is this particular movie, which I do enjoy because we don't get that with certain movies now when it comes to trilogies or quadrilogies or whatever. They kind of just jump forward into some sort of new story. With this, they actually move fluidly, and it works well.
Yeah. There's a nice book ending on each end there. So
yeah,
because I've
much
seen,
like to move on to what our thoughts on that, kind of like a serial in movies.
Correct. Yes.
Kind of like Buck Rogers, and his ideas of the universe and blah blah blah. And they did that with Batman too at certain points too, because they wanted kids to come back every week. With this is their idea within movies to do that in the 70s. Yeah, that's just my thought.
And TV has been kind of going back and forth between like an entire series of like an entire season being one serialized story as opposed to being episodic.
Exactly.
But with like some series like Star Trek, like the recent one that was just released, Strange New Worlds, has been episodic. There's been no connection, and the others so far have all been serialized. And we see that with some other series because that's the way it was intended for that one story to be told.
Well, the question about the Star Trek, now that you bring that up, because it is new, is that canon in Star Trek?
Yes, it is canon.
Cool.
So what's your next point, Mark?
Next point would be Brent's interaction with Zira and Cornelius. But the one disturbing part was that Cornelius was like the interrogation with hitting Zira. It's kind of dated at this point, but it kind of shows for its time that it's okay to hit a woman. And nowadays, no, that is a no-goer.
Yeah. So at least in the context of the story, it says, he hit me for being whatever during the meeting, during that rally that Ursus was holding. And she says, and Zaius is like, well, okay.
Yeah, to me, that was a hard pill to swallow at that point. Honestly, it's like you don't hit a woman. That I've been brought up that way. Don't hit a woman or treat others as you want to be treated as it is. Honestly, there are a lot of women that could kick my ass, but
yes.
But and honestly, you want to be treated as you wanted, you treat others. So treat people respectively, and it shows it for its time, because that was a transitional time, if you think about it, within the 70s.
Yeah, my next point is during this rally or whatever that Ursus was holding, urging his, because you have the apes, you have the orangutans, and you have the chimpanzees. And whenever Ursus is making one of his points, the apes are just like cheering and cheering and cheering, and the other two groups are just sitting there, just like stone faced and or afraid to show any kind of resistance. Yes, exactly.
No hear,
Yeah,
no
Mark's
say.
making-
No
yeah.
hear, no say.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, Mark's making the motion
yeah,
of see no evil, hear no
yeah,
evil,
exactly.
and speak no evil. Yeah, and so during this, Zara is doing her form of protest by remaining seated when everybody else is standing. And you can see like that the orangutans and the chimpanzees kind of reluctantly stand and clap.
Yeah, and I have to agree. That was my next point. The apes starting their little protest and how the apes command and dealt with it. It's very reflective what is going on still to this day with everyone and their points of view in life and how to, I guess say rule the world or, take hold of this world. And I don't think that we'll be ever rid of that at any certain point. There's always going to be some opposing force, but you can have people that are always, as I was motioning, speak no evil, hear no evil. And people are not going to speak their voices, and people are going to just shut up and hide and do whatever they do.
Or stay deaf to the rhetoric.
Exactly. So whether it be gorilla, human, or alien at this point, it makes me think what would happen if there were aliens on this planet, and on this planet it's still, and they just decide to stay here, and we just treat them like animals or specimens, like we do ourselves, as humans, treat everybody as equally. But it's there. That's that particular governing rule. Do they really want to be here? I don't think so. I think that's why they're staying outside of our solar system at this point.
Yeah, well, and I would think that they wouldn't really want to deal with us, and other than that, our signals are only 100 light years out by this point, more or less. And are there any inhabited systems that could even hear it? And what would they be hearing? Think about all the transmissions that were out 100 years ago. So they won't even. They won't even get it yet.
Or they've already gotten it. They came here and they go, "Oh crap!"
Or say,
"It's
nope.
a garbage dump. Why are we here?"
Yeah, because they say they're not going to get off their planet anytime soon to any degree, other than like the Voyager probes.
Yeah.
That's not it.
Oh no, V'ger. You mean V'ger?
Oh yeah, excuse me, V'ger. Yes.
For all you Star Trek fans
For those
out
of
there.
you Star Trek, for the Star Trek people out there, exactly. Okay, so are you the next point, or am I the next point? Okay. See what we see on the way to invade the column of soldiers led by Zaius and Ursus. They see a protest chimpanzee protest, and they're seated, like doing a sit-in, blocking the way of the soldiers, and the soldiers move them out of the way. And that's representative of the Vietnam War protests going on
at that
during
time.
that time.
Yeah, I kind of caught that too, and that's a good catch. A lot of these films are based upon what is happening at that time, and we're going to see that more and more with films that we see coming out within future. We're going to see a lot of stuff, and I'm sure we're going to be covering that stuff over time too on this particular podcast. But we'll equate that at that time. But, this is very particular to that time. And I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, and I almost think, you got to think contemporaneously just what are, I don't know if that's the right word, but you just, again, you got to think about what's happening in that time and know that, and even if they show representations of the future, that they show that whatever's going on present day is happening in that future.
Yeah. Well, history does seem to repeat itself, as we know, between Romans, the Greeks, Egyptians, everything. All these great cities in the world have crumbled over time. And then we seem to be destined to do and repeat ourselves. I'm curious as to see was what's going to happen to our children or grandchildren or whatever. It's going to be interesting at that point.
Exactly. So what's your next point?
Next point would be, seeing Brent and Nova go through the tunnels. They go through those particular tunnels. They're all perfect porcelain at that time, which is a great representation, but I don't think it's realism in any respect. But visually in a movie, it was great. I thought it was like, wow, that's amazing. If everything looked like that after a catastrophe, that would be great.
And after, what, about 3,000 years or so?
Exactly. Something out of a porcelain getaway within a rich person's home, in my opinion. But then they find, themselves within New York City, and they see every street that is known, and it's still preserved. It's something out of Demolition Man.
Yeah, out of because when they're in the subway tunnel.
I'm waiting for Stone going, no, here it is West Side Highway. And then Washington coming out go, yo, man, that's awesome.
Oh, good
Not
Lord.
the right character, but.
Yes, exactly. All right. Next one for me is the church service with the revelation of the mutants like taking their mask off, and they have this whole entire service praying to the bomb.
Yeah,
in making all these religious glory be the bomb and all that whatever they're doing, and I think they call it the Holy Fallout.
They do,
or I think it was.
Which kind of actually makes me think too, because actually watching this after a while, and I'm a huge heavy metal fan. And I love Ozzy Osbourne just like anybody else that's out there. Not just Black Sabbath, but Ozzy Osbourne. So Ozzy had an album called The Ultimate Sin. And he had a song called Thank God for the Bomb. And it kind of falls within the respect. And every time I hear that particular song, Nukem Nukem, like during the chorus, it just reminds me of this particular movie. Because literally that's what they're looking to do. Is like to renew the world with nuclear bombs and destroy. And they're praising this bomb as their god. And it's just so sad.
Yeah. And one thing I'd always remembered is that like forest fires are supposed to be very cleansing for a forest. And that after a fire rips through, is that a whole new like a whole new underbrush and whole new canopy grows in. And that was like maybe their reasoning for that. Thinking in that context, it's like, well, why would they want to, what is the reason for worshiping this bomb other than, it's having it be.
It's their new life. It's kind of somebody who's seeking out religion to help them within their life because they went through so much. And it's like, all right, the gorillas are like, no, we don't need that. We have our own life. And it's opposing forces of those particular religions, if you think about it.
Yeah, and when they remove their masks, it is just like
terrifying.
Now it's horrifying. At that time, but now you look at it, it's like, okay, that's just a skin mask.
Nowadays, it's like, that's nothing. Yeah. You could show that to an 8-year-old. They're like, I see worse.
Yeah, exactly. And but I'm thinking, again, I don't think this movie would ever be remade, to this the way it's done now. Yeah. But I'm thinking that they would have a lot more like a grotesque facade on there,
like skin eroding and things melting off and things of that nature, and it would have very much what you get for like $4,000 or $5,000 for like a skin mask that fits perfectly to your face, around your eyes. And literally that's what they were presenting within this particular movie. And you've seen them, everybody. I'm sure you saw the Facebook videos that people do, like, oh, I showed up as a homeless person in front of my boyfriend and they had like an old man mask on. It was perfect to their face. No. This is perfect to their face to hide what they were covering and concealing. Unfortunately, if it was real and it was a modern day movie, you'd see blood, pus, everything leaking out.
Yeah.
And once they took those masks off, and you would see the realism of it.
Yeah. To show that true horror of the radiation that they had suffered.
Yeah, and they still are suffering through because they're literally living dead at that point.
Yes. Okay. So go ahead, Mark.
The next one would be the checkerboard scene where Brent and Nova are, brought before the constituent or the jury, as it were. And it's pretty much a game of life with these people. And in my opinion, it's like they're trying to judge them. But that's when they pulled off those masks and they showed them who they were. And that's when they kind of freaked out. And that's when they were thrown into cells. And then they were able to see Taylor. And then, obviously, Brent and Taylor, that whole Brent and Taylor fight off, as it were. That was an interesting scene. I'm pretty sure you have that next.
No, actually, no. I have the invasion of the Forbidden Zone by the column of soldiers, where the mutants put forth the illusion about the lawgiver burning in fire with the bodies of apes impaled on stakes beneath them. And the lawgiver's face bleeding. But again, they don't have the apes in this movie don't have the mental capacity to hold that illusion.
Nah, because they're not smart enough.
Yeah. And Zayas recognizes it as an illusion.
That's how they always perceive it, because they don't have the highest of intelligence. They just go amongst what they do with their own community.
Yeah.
Which is fine, too. It's like ignorance is bliss, I guess.
Yeah, it's got to be. For them, anyway. Right. So go ahead, Mark.
That was it for me.
Oh, that was it? Okay. Yeah, that was it for me, too.
But we can talk about that whole situation with Brent versus Taylor. What did you think about that battle scene?
Yeah, well, that one was because the mutant made them fight each other. And I do have a quote for that. For that scene.
All right, cool.
Let's move on to interesting facts and unknown facts about the movie. So, Mark, you start us off.
Interesting facts. The first one that you have here. Well, Roddy McDowall was not able to reprise his role as Cornelius. David Watson filmed in for him at that point, which is something that I actually have in some of my other notes, too, which is very different, too. And I think that's the only time that Roddy McDowall was out of the Apes series.
Yeah, because the point for Cornelius was very, it was more of a supporting role in this one, because it was just like, 2 scenes?
Literally.
That he was in?
Yeah.
Yeah, literally only 2 scenes. And it sounded like Roddy McDowall did some voiceover for Watson in that, because I don't know what Watson's voice actually sounds like.
No,
because it sounded like Roddy McDowall. It
sounded like him, but it wasn't him, honestly. I listened to it a few times. I have this on Blu-ray, so that's how much of a geek or nerd I am. I have the whole series, all the Ape series, on Blu-ray. So I actually watched the movie, and the commentary states that, Roddy had nothing to do with it.
Okay, so he was completely out. Yeah, because he had already committed to a film. I think he was in Scotland at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, next one here is, due to the smaller budget of the film, which was half of what the first film was, or even less than half, vast majority of the extras cast as the apes wore pullover masks instead of the famous ape makeup, which it showed.
Yeah.
Especially during the assembly.
Yeah, the assembly. You saw how they were just masks over their heads, except for the more important characters that had the prosthetics. Yeah. So they were trying to narrow down the effects makeup at that point for cost effective.
Yeah, because I can see that being like one of your most expensive items right there.
Oh, it is. Well, next up would be Orson Welles was offered the role of General Ursus, which he turned down because he didn't want to be in a mask and makeup, which I understand.
Which I don't blame him. Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, well, an actor's voice and face is really what makes them who they are. And then again, Orson Welles actually did voice in the Transformers movie.
Yes, Unicron. I love that movie.
I think we all do.
Well, at least the Transformers fans in us do. Okay. Next one here is, despite the original Planet of the Apes being a significant success, the budget was slashed for this sequel. It had gone from $5 million to $2.5 million in one fell swoop. And this was mainly due to 20th Century Fox teetering on the brink of bankruptcy following some majorly expensive failures, such as Hello Dolly, Star, and Tora Tora Tora.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking like cost versus return.
Yeah.
Made them failures.
Yeah. Well, think about it. The Apes really... The first movie, they got money. This one...
Oh, yeah, they got way... Yeah, not so much.
This one, not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. It still made a profit, but not nearly as much as the first one did because, but I'm thinking you always want to think percentage, because if you think about like a 500 or 600% return, then you're good.
Yeah. Well, you want to make at least 25% more of what you made to make some sort of a profit. I don't think they even achieved that with this, but they continued on with the series, which is pretty funny.
Yep.
All right. Well, next up, the sets of the Mutants Council Chamber are redressed sets from Hello Dolly from 1969, Hotel Lobby, and Grand Central Station. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think the Hollywood rule is reuse, reuse, reuse. Because
well, that's what it was. Because they just reuse movie sets. Honestly. I have to laugh at this because I started getting into a binge watch of a show that I loved when I was about 10 years old. Came out in 1980, or about 1981, 82 maybe, called The Voyagers. And it was very much what the Librarians were that came out recently in most recent years. But in this case, it was a time traveler that went through and corrected, time with the kid because he got stuck with the kid and all he had was his time device, which was called the Omni, and he lost his manual, which, kind of like, the greatest American hero, he lost his manual. And
the instruction. I love it.
And I just love that series, and I got it on Amazon recently. I had to. I have it on DVD somewhere. I just can't find it. So one night I was like, I have to binge watch this show because I remember it and I loved it. About Thomas Edison, Bell, the Wright brothers, everything that fell in between. They had a whole Cleopatra scandal too with Babe Ruth. Honestly, to me, there are so many things that they used within that particular show that you could see on the Universal lots. And you, Jerry, coming from California, I don't know if you've gone to LA and Universal where they have done those where you do the tours. Yes. They're amazing. I've been there 3 times.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done it. I think the last time I was there was about maybe 15 years ago. But I do want to go back again to see how much of the stuff has changed.
They do keep those particular sets available too because they're historic. Yeah. They've been around since like the 20s and 30s. And it's amazing to go see them. But it just kind of reminded me of that, for the fact that they utilized and they used older sets for other films. It makes me think, what did they use for Star Trek? Did they use older sets from Star Trek for Next Gen?
They used, when I was just going to mention like 2 instances I remember here, like the I call them the Kirk Rocks or the Gorn Rocks. Is that they used, the rock formation that's slanted. It's called Vasquez Rocks. Is that I've seen that in 3 or 4 episodes, because it's about 20 miles away from Hollywood, which is easy to locate too. Plus, I've seen it in Westworld. I've seen it they did it in one of the Bill and Ted movies. I think it was the second movie. Because they were doing kind of like a mimicking of, where they're shooting it. And I can't remember. I've seen it in a couple other spots because that rock formation is very, very unique.
It's synonymous with, like, I guess, film industry at this point, And I know people that actually visited that particular area, too, that are YouTubers. And that would be Michael and Jessica from Grim Life Collective. And they have gone out and saw those events and filmed it. So you listeners, go out there, check that out. Check out the Grim Life Collective because they actually do have filming scene locations, and they will talk about that stuff. And Mike likes to go out there and do the hikes. Trust me, the last time he was like, oh my God, that was a hike. And it was for him.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike to get there.
And, you got to be in your best physical effort at this point. Now that we're coming out of a pandemic and everybody's able to move and work, you could do it. Go out and do it and have a good time.
Exactly.
I plan on going to Crystal Lake, hopefully soon, at Camp Nobi Bosco with our friend Jamie Dimmick, and we could probably plan that out for the summer so we could have a good time traveling around the original Friday the 13th campgrounds. But those are the things that you would love to do, and I highly suggest it.
And the other one I saw was another episode of Star Trek where they came upon a duplicate Earth, and that was kind of devastated by a plague. And if you look at one section, there's like what looks like a courthouse with a gable front, and it has like the marble steps with the two columns on the side. And it's the same one that's used in Mayberry on the Andy Griffith show. Yes, they just like kind of redress that lot.
Yeah, well, it's all reused stuff because it's all reused Hollywood, anyway.
Okay, and then to that point, next point here is the subway tunnel system that we see in this movie was reused for Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, among other movies. And the next one we're doing is actually, I think it is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Escape. Escape from the Planet of the Apes is the next one because Conquest is the fourth one. I'm getting my movies out of order here. So, I remember seeing that movie a while back, and it's like, oh, yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, next up, it took a lot of persuasion for both Charlton Heston and Kim Hunter to reprise their roles for this particular film. Heston didn't believe in making sequels as a rule, and Hunter had such an ordeal with the rigors of dealing with the makeup appliances during the first film.
Which I can understand.
No, I can understand, too, but in years later, when she had gone to conventions, people who I know that met her, she still, to that day, loved being in the makeup. She loves the idea, that she is known as, Zira.
Yeah, and that's again one of the iconic characters in film history, and especially of science fiction.
Yes,
because I was going to say, there's hundreds and hundreds of characters, but I'd say she's at least top 200 ever.
Yes. Yeah. And she's known because the movie is the series is iconic. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows it and they know her voice. If you hear Zira in a show and you're like, oh, that's not her. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not Kim Hunter.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Next point here is Heston, who was finally committed to the role and gave the director only 2 weeks to finish the filming and insisted that his character Taylor be killed, which he did. And Heston donated all of his earnings to charity, which he was always good about stuff like that. So,
he's always been good at that. He was, till his death, was a gun rights advocate too. My father loved Charlton Heston. Honestly, it's like I can understand somebody. That is one of our things that is available to us is as Americans, and I'm Republican, but I do have liberal thoughts on certain things. Yeah. And one of those is the right to bear arms, but within a certain respect of, like, if you broke the law, if you went to, if you were in prison in a certain way, you have convictions, there are issues, there's got to be some sort of hold. And both my father and myself and my brother both feel that way. We all feel that way in our family. And my father was a police officer. My brother was a police officer. And Heston gave away to charities. And it showed very much respect to other people. Yeah. And I respect the man. A lot of people hated it because they hated it because he was the NRA spokesperson for years. But they kind of looked at it in a bad light. And in my opinion, he did the right thing. But, at least, it shows a matter of respect to other people and fellow man. He gave things away to charity. Yeah, so you can say he stuck to his guns in that regard. Sorry, Mark. Oh, wow. I'm not Daphne, so I'll accept it.
I'm sorry, it was right there. I had to take it.
Yeah. You took the shot.
Exactly. And as much as I disagree with, with his stance on weapons, I'm not really a gun person, but I do respect the power that those things have,
Yeah.
And I've always had the number one rule that my father drilled into my head about whenever you hold a weapon, always treat it like it's loaded, and especially when it is.
Exactly. That is true.
Yes. Okay. And the final point here is Burt Reynolds was considered for the role of Brent, but it was offered to Franciscus.
I would love to see that.
And when I look into movies and I read stuff like that, I was like, I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah.
Just as a one-off to say, you just kind of imagine what it would have been like, because you see him in like the movies with Sally Field, or like, I can't remember that. What the heck is that?
Oh, Smokey and the Bandit?
God, why did my brain meat do that? It does. But yeah, but you see, like,
she only did one with them, actually two, but
you see him in Smokey and the Bandit, and it's like, I wonder what he would have been like in that movie. But
yeah.
Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to quotes. Mark.
All right, quotes. What do I have for quotes? This has been interesting. Where are my quotes? That's a good question. Give me a sec.
All right.
I don't have anything here quotable, but I do have quotes, and it's the funniest thing. All right, cool. I got one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Zero to Dr. Zaius. What will he find out there? And Dr. Zaius says, and this is pretty much the caveat from the first film to the new one, his destiny. Which, this movie shows what we knew from the first Planet of the Apes film. So, which we already had covered.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I've got a few here. So mine is when they're in the rally, when General Ursus says, I'll tell you one thing that every good soldier knows. The only thing that counts in the end is power. Naked, merciless force. To kind of like rile up his soldiers.
Yeah, the army.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Next up for me would be Dr. Zaius saying, as Minister of Science, it is my duty to find out that some other form of life exists. And Zero retorts, where are you going? And Dr. Zaius says, into the forbidden zones with Ursus. And Zero says, another manhunt, Doctor? And Dr. Zaius says, someone or something has outwitted the integrity of the gorillas. Which is very interesting.
Yeah, like how much integrity do they have to begin with?
And how really do you have to outwit a gorilla?
Not very. Well, and you heard Zero during the film kind of making cracks like that, but would be too hard to outwit a gorilla.
Yeah.
Okay. And to that point, like during, I think it was just before that, when Cornelius is talking to Brent, and when he's going to send him out, to remember, only apes can speak, not her and not you. If they catch you speaking, they will dissect you and they will kill you in that order. And one of these things is like, I always, when some quote kind of makes me just like burst out laughing, it's like, I gotta keep it because it's just, because it's just memorable for me.
Yeah. I don't have any other quotes at this point, so.
All right.
Whatever you got.
I got three more. It's like,
okay.
During the ape invasion, Zaius recognizes the illusion, after seeing the image of the lawgivers, bleeding when he's like in the big wall of fire and all the other apes are on stakes. He says, the spirit of the lawgiver lives. We are still God's chosen. This is a vision and it is a lie. And so he goes up into it and the illusion disappears, kind of like, amazing the apes to say that he recognized that.
It's magic.
It's magic, yes. Okay. And during the church service, after the church service, says I believe his name is Mendez, is talking to Brent, and there's him and another one of the mutants. Says, I trust this simple ceremony convinced you of our peaceable intentions, and I would like to thank you for cooperation. Brent asks, when may we hope to be set free? And he replies, you may hope whenever you please, Mr. Brent. It's like, dang. That means you're not going to get let go.
No, you're not.
Okay. To get Brent and Taylor to fight, and this is when the other mutants escorting Brent back to the cell, and this is where he meets up with Taylor and finds out, he's there.
Yeah.
And they talk about, you're going to get us, you're going to kill your enemies, right? And the mutant tells Brent and Taylor, it's like, we don't kill our enemies. We get our enemies to kill each other through illusion.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a mind game.
Yes. and to that end, all these illusions and everything that makes people fight is, again, it reminds me of the very, very first Star Trek episode with Jeffrey Hunter, the one with the original pilot was. The aliens in there also use illusion as a weapon.
Mm-hmm. That is true. So they're pulling from Roddenberry. Roddenberry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Roddenberry.
And during that fight, Nova screams out Taylor, uttering her first and only words.
Yep, that was the only time we actually hear her speak, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was like one of those things. Like, well, they are she is capable, but if you never try to speak, you never or never taught that you could speak, you're never gonna know.
Well, she needed her SAG card.
Yeah. Oh, she did. That's right about speaking roles. Okay, Taylor talking about the bomb. He says, Alpha and Omega, the Doomsday Bomb, another lovely souvenir from the 20th century. They weren't satisfied with a bomb that could only knock out a city. They finally built one with a cobalt casing, all in the sweet name of peace.
Interesting.
Yes. And then when the apes enter the cathedral, the one mutant Mendez, he's talking to the apes, says, this is the instrument of my God. And it surprises all the guerrilla soldiers that a human can talk. They
never knew at that point, except for Taylor or Brent at that point. Taylor was the biggest one.
Yeah.
Brent, they hardly knew about.
Mm-hmm. And then now here's a third one. Here's
wow.
One. Yes. Yeah. And Ursus has one of the sergeants shoot him, said, your God didn't save you now, did he? I was like, this guy's just cruel.
And the fact that they all speak English too.
Yeah, and and can't understand each other.
Yeah.
And
they didn't have intergalactic communicators so they could actually understand each other.
Yeah, no universal translators.
Universal translator, yep.
Next to last is Taylor and Zaius are talking about this. He's, after Taylor's shot, says, Zaius, it's Doomsday, the end of the world. Help me. And Zaius replies, you asked me to help you? Man is evil, capable of nothing but destruction, which is not altogether untrue.
No, it's not untrue, but it's the same thing as apes as well, because they are pretty much where man came from.
Yes. And, Taylor sets off the bomb, and in the final, the final voiceover that we hear, it says, in one of the countless billions of galaxies in this universe lies a medium-sized star. And one of its satellites, a green and insignificant planet, is now dead. Which I had to go back because I recognized the voice from that voiceover. And do you remember the part of the 1960 Time Machine where George spins the rings and they talk?
Yeah.
Same voice.
Really?
Yeah. There's I think there's two different voices of the rings. The second one is that real deep voice. And his name is Paul Frees, that voiceover guy. And he is also the voiceover for the opening of the War of the Worlds from 1953.
Wow, that is awesome.
And it's one of those guys. It's almost like Benedict Cumberbatch or Morgan Freeman. It's like they are wonderful for voiceover because they have the voice for it. And oddly enough, that now that I say that, Morgan Freeman did the voiceover for the 2005 War of the Worlds movie.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
As well as the Penguins, March of the Penguins.
Oh, yeah, March of the Penguins, yes. Although completely different stories.
Completely different stories, but a profound voice.
Yes.
For voice acting.
Yeah. And there's
we won't get a Will Smith. We might get a Dwayne The Rock Johnson eventually. Mm-hmm. Or we will get somebody else who is, Benedict Cumberbatch has made a name for himself, not only as Sherlock Holmes, but also as Doctor Strange and so much others.
Yeah, but one of my favorites of his was voicing Smaug the Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude. That was so stinking good.
Yeah, and the Hobbit trilogy, as it were. Meanwhile, they could have done that in like at least 2 films, not 3.
Two films would have been good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to our ratings of the movie. So, Mark, what would you rate this movie?
For an Apes film, I definitely give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. And mine is I'm giving it a 7. And despite it not being the best of the series, I still like it. It's good enough. It's good enough to watch in the series. And again, I've watched these films so many times over the years. I could just like set it to play and know what's happening throughout the.
Yeah, well, where I lived in New York City at the time when they would put these on repeat during like the late 70s and into the 80s, into the 90s on a Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those movies I could actually know where we're at within a particular movie. If I just walked in going, oh, okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
I'll leave it on. And I already know the dialogue, what's going on, because I grew up on this particular film, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love these films as they are, as a whole, and as a full, complete series. Now, when I said 7.5 out of 10, the reason why I said that is because this movie gave me the heebie-jeebies at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the taking off the masks. As a little kid, I saw that and freaked the hell out of me. As I get older, I kind of got into effects makeup and realized, okay, that's not real. But it kind of looks that wouldn't really be it. But I liked it for the fact, as I got older, I got to appreciate it more and more.
Yeah.
So that's why I gave it that half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one, I know that this was something else I read about. This was the film that nearly killed the franchise.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah, almost. But but I'm thinking, despite their best efforts, like Heston, killed off his character, so he wasn't coming back.
No, but they were able to find other people and other stories to work with it, and they got back Roddy McDowell. They got Kim Hunter back, and those two were the fulcrum of the show or the series, as it were. And then eventually, Apes Madness happened. And everything was publicized, popularized within toys, puzzles, comic books, everything, which led into Lucas's idea of doing everything with Star Wars the same way.
All the toys and everything.
Yep. What was it? The Toys That Made Us?
Yeah.
And if you watch that on Netflix, you'll hear it and you'll see it, because they talk about Planet of the Apes before they get into Star Wars.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to less popular movies, which are any movies that are not popular or great, but you just have to watch them once in a while because you just love them. Mark.
All right. I guess I'll start.
Yes.
For me, well, that would be the Omega Man. I've already mentioned this before. It's from 1971. It's pretty much, it has Charlton Heston in it, and it's literally... what was that Will Smith movie?
I Am Legend.
I Am Legend. It's literally I Am the Legend.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's a different version of the particular film. Now, mind you, I enjoyed it. And the only reason why I bring it up again, because Charlton Heston.
Yes. Yeah, and also that Vincent Price kind of did the original version of this called The Last Man on Earth.
Yes.
Yeah, which I really like that film too, but... One thing about I Am Legend, if you're a dog lover, please be kind.
Yes, because they will protect you.
Yes. And if you're a dog lover, be ready.
Yeah.
All right. My movie, again, we're visiting a TV film again. And I remember seeing this when I was about maybe 8 or so for the first time. It is called The Boy Who Cried Werewolf from 1973.
I remember that movie.
It is
enough.
Yeah, it is available on YouTube. The actor who plays the lead here, who plays the werewolf, is Kerwin Matthews, who we will see in a future episode of Adrenaline. He was in The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad.
Oh, wow! Awesome.
Yeah. So on this movie, it's like a boy visits his father at his cabin. The father is attacked by a werewolf and kills that werewolf, but then becomes one himself. And the boy tries to tell people about about his dad being a werewolf, but nobody believes him.
Interesting.
And oddly enough, it is, but it's one of those like I call it the Lon Chaney transformation, just for like the same camera just adds more, it's not like an American Werewolf in London. Nowhere, because I don't think anything can ever be that good as far as like a transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very extreme for its time, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, but this one's just like the sit still and add more hair to your face kind of movie. But it is available on YouTube, so it's always worth the watch.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I found out too, and looking into that movie, I forget the name of the kid, but that was his only credit.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I don't know if he had like the Jake Lloyd effect where he just got like so hammered for doing that movie or not. It's like I would have to look further into it, but again,
speaking of Jake Lloyd,
yes,
yeah, from Phantom Menace, right?
Yes,
yeah. Well, I'll be covering that shortly with our friend Rob, who is on the Pirate Core Entertainment Network as well, with Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, and we're gonna do that and recast, figure out a script, and who we could change directorial and story wise within that to make the movie better, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. So go ahead and take on the feedback stuff.
Oh, there is no feedback, but obviously anybody who wants to leave any feedback, all you have to go to is our Facebook page, which would be facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. You can just leave a comment, and when this particular episode loads and then I share it, we'll talk about it on the next episode, obviously, or play your feedback if you leave a voicemail. And with that, you could actually send an email to us. And all you have to do is go to AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com and send that particular email. You could also record your voice, like I stated, and send that as an attachment, and we'll play it. And we'll listen to it live as we're recording, if we're recording at that time. And with that, we could be heard on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn, Deezer, whatever podcast player of choice. But the best way to show your love is to give us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts. And I already mentioned it within what I'm doing next. So obviously we have gotten a new podcast for the Pirate Core Entertainment Network, and that would be Fantasy Picks Movie Edition with Rob Moda. So check that out. Just go to the piratecoreentertainment.com website and you'll be able to get all his feeds, his links, his Instagram, his Twitter, his Facebook, everything. And you can listen to it there on the website. If not, just go to your podcast player of choice, look up Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, and then subscribe, and you'll listen to everything that he has to offer. I think currently they have at least a good 6 or 7 episodes. But I will be on the next one. That will be coming out, and that will be Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. So check that out when you can, and please do subscribe if you like what Rob's doing with this podcast. Other than that, Jerry, where can we hear you?
I just recently did another episode. I watched it in the 80s where Damien and I covered Das Boot.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's a good movie.
I really like that movie, but that movie is so stinking long. It is so worth it, though.
It's like almost 3 hours, right?
I want to say, yeah. So it's like 3.5, if I remember right. So.
Wow. Yeah, it's a good movie, and I highly recommend it. It's one of those good to go war movies, but it'll, if you're really into like really hurting yourself and watching a movie mentally, physically, you could do it. But it is history.
Yes, and it's like one of those, and I mentioned it on the podcast, is like I always like to see the other side of the conflict as well.
Exactly.
Because, they may be your adversary, but they're also still humans.
Yeah, everybody is the same way, and they're just fighting for the country just the same, whether or not it's the same thought and aspect, but they're doing it whatever they need for the country.
Yeah, and they're war weary, and some are very patriotic, and some are very war weary. Just like I think an American subcrew might be after going through what these guys have gone through. If they were
same thing with the apes and the humans that are left alive, still in beneath the planet of the apes. You could find me on Panels to Pixels podcast on the Next Level Online Radio Podcast Network. Therein, Steve Brown and I cover anything that is adapted from comics, going to movie, film, or anime. We wrapped up Moon Knight. We're going to move on to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. As you're hearing this, you're probably on to the next thing, so we're probably going on to Miss Marvel at this point. Or we had something in between that we're just going to have fun with. Who knows? Maybe Morbius. We don't know. But we will have fun with it. Check us out there. And you can find Panels to Pixels on the Next Level Online Radio Podcast Network. And, that's about it. And I have to thank Jerry for covering and taking control over this particular podcast when it comes to the Apes. Because this is his passion. He loves doing this. And I love the Apes as well, but I don't love it as much as Jerry does. Because he put all the hard work into this.
At least this time around.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to doing what's our next one that we have on the docket? Is it Angry Red Planet?
Angry Red Planet, yes. So if you guys are listening to this, check it out and then send us in feedback for that too. If you are really into that kind of nostalgic kind of horror movie or dark movie, as it were. We love these kind of things. That's why we do these particular podcasts. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jerry.
And this was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. And we'll catch you on the next reel. Later.
Later.